The next question is, what about the respawning trees and buildings? I'm guessing this is when you like hit a fence or hit a tree and then you get like halfway through it and then it appears again, it is definitely annoying. And the answer is it's a desynchronization issue. When the client's machine and server are not able to get a 100% accurate link to visualize the change, like your tanking moving slowly or a shell you fire not registering as a penetration or hit. Yeah, so hopefully those issues get solved over time. They are incredibly annoying, especially, when, you have those situations where you shoot at the same time as another individual, and what happens is they hit you and you don't hit them. It would be really nice if, stuff like that was improved. And the next one, we are working on improving the netcode, but it is impossible to remove this issue. Due to server and client communication, it will always be there. I understand it will always be there, but as long as the issue is getting smaller, then that is a step in the correct direction, which is great. The next question is, when will tanks get their FPE and parts stock? It's a good question. Answer: we do not want to make the progression for players very difficult, nor don't want them to suffer. On the other side, we try to improve the comfort for players, but it's very difficult to make everyone happy at once. What a non-answer. Well, just don't answer the question. Just say no comment. Like, goddamn, this doesn't make any. You do not want to make the progression for players very difficult, right? So the way that you solve this is you either reduce everything modification wise, or you make everything free, right? Those are the two simple ways you have it if you want to make them less difficult. You've also added in stuff such as the night vision and thermals, which have once again made progression harder for people, right? So don't give me this very difficult idea. You don't want people to suffer. It's the same as difficult, because if something is difficult in game and you are not playing at your optimal amounts because you don't have a fully spaded vehicle, you're going to suffer because of it, right? It's as simple as that, because vehicles are balanced on the fact that they're spaded. So anything which isn't spaded, you are already at a disadvantage of where you should be. On the other side of stuff, we try to improve the comfort for players, but it's very difficult to make everyone happy. If you wanted to make everyone happy, as I said, simple solution, just make it all free. But that's what you need. The bit of the answer that's missing here is we also need to make money, and it's okay to talk about that. As an adult who has a full-time salary job, I understand the need for people to make money. I'm fine with people talking about that need, especially from a company point of view. Like, I watched a Tarkov stream with Tazzy where they were talking about the new updates, and the main guy behind it was literally like, we're having problems because our best guys are getting sniped by companies which are, bigger than us. So we're losing some devs, but we have a really dedicated team. We're working incredibly hard to make sure this is going on. Obviously, money in the region that they're in is not as much as other regions like America, but they're doing, they're working hard. If you put that idea into this answer, people would be fine with it. I know a lot of people think that talking about money is a boogie idea, but at least to me, as a human, I don't see it as one. It is a factor, and one thing that you'll find out of the English stream and the Russian stream is money is never talked about. If you just put in a line here which was like, we understand that if we look from the player point of view, the best thing would be to make everything free, even the research vehicle, so everybody could try everything. But there is an economical element to this, and the economical element is because it's a free-to-play game, we have to make money through certain systems, e.g. The camouflage system, the progression system, and the premium system, which also, encompasses the progression system. And this is one of the ways that we have decided as a company that we need to make economically strong and also give people a purpose to research these vehicles more than just playing them a few times if they were fully spaded. Like that's what you say, right? And I'm 90% of the people, at least I know, would be like, yeah, it makes sense. You've got to make money. Like, it's okay. Like, we understand. The next question is, what sources do you use? Like the BMP380 gem, reload being 31 seconds. That was an interesting change. We do use many sources, but knowing not all sources are accurate and have deviation in values. Reload is somewhat a balanced characteristic. Ooh. I mean, right. So there's two problems here. Okay. I can understand the sources thing is completely correct. It's kind of interesting when you can look at two primary sources and they can say two completely different things about a vehicle. So then you have to delve a little bit deeper, try and find some more primaries, some more secondaries, maybe a few tertiaries, maybe a few opinions, and you try and build a picture, especially on a lot of these top tier vehicles like the BMP3, which are still relatively modern compared to the World War II stuff. A lot of the World War II stuff is pretty much set in stone, at least when it comes to where you go for sourcing. Now, when it comes to the second part, though, that's worrying because you have two things working here. Reload is somewhat of a balance characteristic. If they're talking from a point of manual reloading, which is what they've talked about in the past, then I can understand. Because what you can do is you can say that the human, which is on the end of the reload, is maybe a little bit weaker than expected, maybe he hasn't been able to hit the trials, or maybe you want the crew skills to improve, so when it's fully spaded, he will be able to hit the trial limit, which is something that you have to do in order to make, make the classification for the vehicle, right? You could definitely do that. It's something that the Abrams guys have talked about a lot, the Challenger guys as well, when it comes to the reloading of the gun. And if you want to make that a balance characteristic, I can understand. The problem is, with the BMP3, you're talking about a very automated system, just like stuff like the T-72, the T-64s, and the T-80. All of those are automated systems which have a distinct, specific reload. Right? We can calculate exactly how long it takes them to reload by, basically looking at how long it takes to reload the damn gun. And it should be the same every time because it's an automated system. Okay? So saying that the automated system can also be used as a balance characteristic, that's not good. That can't be good. The manual side, I can understand. But the automatic side, no. The next question is, when will you reveal your formula for calculating shells and visualization of shrapnel? I'm guessing they're talking about post-pen damage here. The answer is, when you see the hit cam, it does not show everything. The shrapnel you see is a generation of smaller shells after penetration. Well, that's kind of interesting. Yes, there is more room to improve the accuracy and visualization, but the issue is actually calculating all the different smaller shells, which is very demanding. I mean, with stuff like the Demave formula and I can never remember the name of the other one, the Lanz-Odermatt formula being put in, and also with a lot of post-pen effects changing over this last half year or so, it does show that they are trying to improve what is going on after the shell penetrates, and not just if the shell penetrates or not. So I'm generally happy with the progress that we've seen. Obviously, individually modeling every part of it is going to be a tough thing to do, and I'm sure we're just going to get improvements over time. The next question is, arcade markers are not very fair and work very crooked. Very recently it got worse when players don't render and their names do not appear. The answer is, we have not changed the spotting system in arcade since like 1.47. So whatever this dude's on, he's on a bit of the crazy juice. So unless, well, I mean, there might be a bug, right? Or maybe he's hitting Alt-Z or whatever it is and hiding everything by accident. This kind of reminds me of, there was a question on the English stream which was like, why do my guns work with this but not with this? And it's like, what is this question? Like, Either get better at aiming, or for some reason your internet connection has taken an absolute dump when you're when you're playing another vehicle. Like, it was just I compared it to a Dalek basically being like, explain. God, it was just bad. Anyway, the next question is, War Thunder closing in 2020, a rumor that was spread very quickly. I haven't heard that rumor at all. And this is what I mean about how how you have certain parts of the community that believe in certain things, and then you have certain parts which have no idea. I've never heard this at all from the English side of it. What I have heard, though, is something that was actually incredibly damaging, and this is why you've got to be careful about rumors. So when the Chinese tech trees were talked about when it came to before, they were actually fully announced. One of the things that was also mentioned when it came to those Chinese tech trees, because, at least for me, you could kind of see the stars lining up. You could also, after talking to a few individuals, it was very obvious that the Chinese tech trees were coming. But one of the rumors that came out of it, and it must have been made up by somebody trying to work out why the Chinese tech trees were being added, was that the contract with Tencent and Gaijin was coming up to a close. So pretty much the contract would be running out, and the game would cease to exist in China. That is why all of these Chinese vehicles, which are supposedly licensed to Tencent, and therefore by the contract ending, all of the vehicles would be able to come onto the international server. Right? That was the ideas that were being put out. That was all just completely false. The whole thing was false. You can go to Tencent's website right now and have a look at War Thunder, and they've literally just released an update with a lot of the SAMs in it, right? I believe they're about 1 or 2 updates behind us. They normally add in updates, like 3 updates at a time, so you get a massive amount of content. But this idea that the agreement between Gaijin and Tencent was ending was completely fabricated. And the problem with this is that can really affect business relations of different companies. Because let's say Tencent gets wind of this, and they basically go to Gaijin, what the hell is this talking about? Are you trying to screw us? And then there's a conversation to be had, and then you can actually end up getting, you could end up individuals getting sued for stuff like defamation, because you're literally spreading false information that will affect a company's bottom line. And the one thing a company doesn't want to do is to have to, have its bottom line hit because of lies. So you've got to be really careful when it comes to rumors, or what you claim as rumors, especially when you're trying to work out why things are happening. You've got to be completely crystal clear, especially when talking about that stuff, which is why when we talked about, the Swedish tech tree stuff, when we talked about the Apache stuff, when we talked about other stuff when it came to leaks, like the Japanese Navy stuff, I made sure to keep out anything to do with the business side of things. I don't talk about the modelers, which are making things. I don't talk about, Gaijin themselves, or at least I try not to. Instead, you just focus on the vehicle, and you focus on, the fact that these are the things which line up to make it look like it's coming, right? So that's why all of the other information is kind of left out, to make sure that if anybody is hurt by that information or is found out by that information, you just leave it over there. So you got to be really careful with that stuff. And I still hear that rumor today. I still hear the fact that the Chinese client is closed down. It's not. It's still there. You can go onto it. You can go onto Tencent's website. You know what? Let's just do it now, right? So, Tencent War Thunder. You can literally find it right here, right? This is Tencent's website for War Thunder. As you can see, update 1.89 has been released. And then they have, this is the announcement area where they show what's been going on. And you can see on the 11th of the 9th, or the 9th of 11th, whatever it is, this was literally from today. September 11th. There we go. So it is from 2 months ago. They are implementing this update 1.89, Airspace Forbidden Zone. I love the translations. But you can see they updated the game in September, right? Why would you be closing a game if you update it with like 3 sets of updates? And it's still around, it's still going to this day, and we're in November. And we have the Chinese tech trees. Craziness. Anyway, the answer is Kirill laughs. I was not informed. We have thousands of servers that we contract with. We do have automatic contract system to renew them. We do not have one server that we contract. Don't worry. Can you imagine? War Thunder is not closing down anytime soon. Possibly the rumor that the project itself is closing down. Yeah, I don't think War Thunder is going anywhere. If we look at Gaijin Entertainment, it's their flagship product. So unless something comes along that they're able to develop, whether through the publishing area of Gaijin or through the development side, and it becomes larger than War Thunder, then it ain't moving. It's as simple as that. The next one is the question AntiCheat. Where is it? This is a good question. The answer, we are testing and reworking it currently. We are trying to make it very accurate and want to reduce the risk of a system making a mistake which will cause a player's ban who is innocent. Sometimes we heavily use server replays to make more accurate actions. Once we fix the current issues, it will be fully implemented. We sometimes add it and remove it to watch players and collect information. Ah, interesting. So it's not banning people, but it is collecting information. That's why I'm guessing I have talked to some people where the easy anti-cheat does boot when they actually start playing the game. So it is, having a look at what's going on, but it isn't going to enforce any rules yet because they're making sure to not have any false positives. And I definitely agree with this stance. Falsely banning people is horrific when it comes to any game. You don't want your game to be known as one of those ones where you just get banned for doing nothing. Because if that happens, then a lot of people are put off the game because they're worried about their accounts disappearing randomly, right? And I definitely subscribe to the philosophy that if we have to, it's much better for 10 guilty people to go free than one innocent person being put in jail. You know what I mean? So we need to make sure that the system is completely crystal clear, that it knows what is good and what is bad, and there are no false positives. The next question is enlisted. What about it? The answer is we had a playtest very recently. A lot of work is being put into it. We need more info, man. Need more info about enlisted. Enlisted is one of those ones which is just, it has gone under the radar for too long. I talked about this when we went over one of the Q&As. The last post about it was on the 2nd of May, and it's not even talking about enlisted. It's literally talking about a new set of graphical improvements, right? So the last post about enlisted, wholly about enlisted, was nearly a year ago, right? And I understand, you want to make sure that the project is, going well. You want to focus on the development side of things, but you need to publicize it. You need to make content around it. Whether you give, the alpha test to people to record, I'll be completely fine, with making some content around it. Whether you, do some just questions, Q&A development, something has to be done, right? Because right now, I have a ton of people asking me, what's happening with enlisted? And these are not people, or I don't think they are, that have backed the game. Because remember, this was a publicly funded sourced game. So there are people who have paid money into this game to see what's going on. So hopefully we get more information. That would definitely be something we need, but it is unfortunately falling under the radar for the general public. The next question is subs. Where are they? Are you working on them? The answer is sometimes players mistake the dev state and promise the addition of vehicles. In the near future, there will be no subs. And that isn't really a surprise. We had the submarine test on April Fool's, but for me, that was much more of a test on guided munitions and also a test for stuff like sonar and radar. So it wasn't really a test for subs because the subs were just the subs themselves were just pulled out of, whatever randomly physical model they had. The interesting thing was the mechanics behind them. So for me, those mechanics, I'm guessing, are being used in the game right now, just in different forms. Submarines they're a bang and bust scenario, just like helicopters are. And as we've seen with stuff like helicopters, they're not exactly the most popular thing, but when they do take over games, they're incredibly strong. And they're very polarizing, and I think submarines would be the same thing. The next question is World War Mode. This is one I wish was asked in the English stream, but unfortunately we didn't get anything. The next answer is next season is soon. Currently working on it. Have patience. Hopefully we'll be able to do what we did last time with Tech ES and have a lot of fun and be able to create, a really structured thing. We had the best win rates when it came to battles. We had the best KD, I suppose you would talk about it. We were incredibly efficient in the game, and unfortunately, we didn't make, top 10, but I was very proud of the work that everybody was able to do. And now that we have ever-expanding squadrons, they can all get involved in World War Mode. The next question is BRs themselves. I'm not sure about the question. Hella crooked. I love what Cate has put there. The answer is BRs do not incorporate players, but the playable vehicles. BRs make the match more diverse due to the 0.3 system. The only use of this value, which allows you to meet the opposite vehicles of this BR. Adding a 0.1 system, this will make it worse and more difficult to control and will cause more longer queue times. We had a system that we never added. We had a balance table that we wanted to use, no BRs but the vehicle performance. Interesting. So there was a video that I made a few months ago talking about the mouse when it was being removed. And what I did was I had a look at the idea of BR decompression. A lot of people wanted the increase in top tier BRs, so it's stuff like 10.7, 11.0. I generally agree with it, but I think it should be done in increments, which is pretty much what they're doing with the 10.3 idea. The other thing was people wanted the BR spread to be knocked down by 0.7. So I used the mouse as an example because it was one of the big reasons this conversation was happening was because of the mouse. And I went through every scenario that you could do with the mouse. If you change the BR system to 0.7, if you moved a bunch of vehicles around it, what would happen? So if you want an analysis of why 0.7 will not really help anything, go and watch that video, because I put a hell of a lot of effort basically working out why stuff would happen and what would happen, and it doesn't help. It doesn't fix the problem. The vehicles that struggle are still going to struggle because of what is around them. So yeah, simple as. The next question is T90 when? And the answer is surely we will reach it at some point. I mean, yeah, you will. You've got the M1A2 and the Leopard 2A5 in the game. And the Challenger 2. So the T90 is the next step, isn't it? After the T80. I suppose you could put in some of the more modernized T72s. That would be definitely something to look at. But yeah, the T90 is the next step. The next one is maps, sniping from spawn to spawn or center to respawn sniping. The answer, more spawn protection, like hills or buildings, and remove the red zone of death. We will not remove the red zone. It has shown that it can work, but we are considering more effective ways to improve the lack of protection around spawns. Designers are aware of that. They do keep that in mind, but it's difficult to make it work well for both teams. I can definitely understand that. The problem is it's a fundamental problem with how War Thunder is set up. So there's not really a full fix for it. The only fix is if you see it happening on certain maps, make sure to get to the camping spots before the campers do. And once you take them out, because they've taken all that time to get over to your spawn, you now have the impetus to push forward and do well for your team. So counter the counter, right? Like that's the advice I can give. The next question is loaders having stamina. This is an interesting one. The answer is bad idea and won't really work that well and is demotivating, why a loader starts to reload slower after a certain amount of time. I mean, you kind of had the same idea with the first stage ammo rack, but I suppose, that makes a lot more sense, but you could see that as a loader having stamina. But it's kind of like the barrel manipulation idea. So you know how if you shoot, your gun so many times, what it does is it makes the gun more inaccurate because of the fact that there's a lot of heat transfer going on, so therefore the gun is expanding and retracting a lot. Therefore, you get a situation where your sights do not line up with where your gun is shooting. A lot of people have said that we should have this in-game as a mechanic, but it is just a negative mechanic. There is no positive from it, apart from the people who get stuff like thermal sleeves, which will hopefully, help with that mechanic, but all it does is create a negative scenario for everyone else who doesn't. And also, it adds in another RNG factor, which you have to account for, which for me, I don't want in War Thunder. So yeah, it's the same as this one. It's just a negative mechanic that will only annoy people. You need mechanics to have positives and negatives. There isn't a positive to this one, it just takes stuff away from the player. The next question is tanks falling under the map, is that a bug? The answer is yes, it's a bug. And it says Anton High-Key roasts World of Tanks for an old GUI. Okay, sure. I don't know what that's about. Anyway, the next question is, could you make players after spawning see-through to avoid collision? The answer is, we have tested this. You can abuse the damage model and drive forever invincible. Oh, that's why. Okay. So basically what they're saying is if you spawn inside of each other, as long as you sort it out properly and stay inside of each other, then you can make that secondary tank invincible. Wow, I didn't even think about that. And then even if the over tank dies, as long as you don't spawn back in, you're technically sat inside a busted tank. Wow, that's what I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that's kind of interesting actually. I like that answer, and obviously it's a good answer. You learn something new every day. The next question is arcade mode with health points. The answer is very difficult and has some of its downsides. Well, yeah, you basically take away the whole damage mechanics of War Thunder by doing it, so there's not really much point. It's much better to see your health points as your crew, or your health points as where you get shot, or it's basically, if you want to boil everything down, War Thunder is all about health points, because you have your crews can take a certain amount of damage, your ammunitions can take a certain amount of hits, all of this stuff. But yeah, just having a generic overall bar of health is not going to work in War Thunder. The next question is test drive for all vehicles. The answer is, we have a simple function. If you can research a vehicle, you can test drive it. All premiums can be test driven. Thanks for dodging the question. Maybe the question wasn't formulated very well, but it should have been, why don't you allow people to test drive every vehicle? We have a system in protection analysis where you can work out where to shoot specific vehicles, or how to deal with other vehicles' armor that you may deal with. But why can we not work out the performance of other vehicles that we have to face? Take a scenario where you are an American player and you've ground up to rank 5. Maybe you really like the M60. You play the M60 a lot and you want to work out where is the best, what is your matchup like against a Leopard, right? A Leopard 1, which is also at 7-7, but you haven't ground up the German tech tree. You can't even get a feel for that Leopard because you're not able to test drive it, you're not able to try it out. Instead, you have to grind up the whole tech tree to be able to get to it. Now, as somebody who plays, all of the tech trees, that isn't a problem for me, but I understand it is a problem for a lot of other players. I would expand the ideas that we find from the protection analysis into the test drive, so therefore you can test drive all the vehicles that you want. I mean, you technically can through mods and user missions, but at the same time you don't really, that's limited because you can't get them on consoles, and also you don't want to have to download something like that to play a separate vehicle. The next question is, the crafting events are very difficult and are impossible. The answer, the events are made for people who are willing to put in a lot of time and effort to receive the vehicles. We do try to keep a mix of events, and that allows all types of vehicles to have an easy time to get rare vehicles. I mean, I answered this at the start. I don't like that, that answer. These events are optional. Well, your game's optional. It's the same logic. It's not good. So yeah. This is, as you can see, Kirill said they'll do more of them. Which is wonderful, and as as Cate said at the bottom, made by the Tech Hub gang. So once again, thank you to Cate for putting this together. Thank you to everyone else who helped out. It's very, very kind of you to set this up for the general public. And another thing to also talk about is, when it comes to these answers, the answers are pretty good. There's only, once again, a few of them I disagree with, and a few that need to be expanded upon. Enlisted, that is something that needs to have a look at. Stuff like, the other systems, such as the test driving. These are all valid questions, and hopefully they get answered pretty soon in more, better ways. Maybe the questions need to be formulated a little bit better, but it should be all right to answer them. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Blackie, Daniel Stanton, Jay Wilt, John Ryman, Joseph Anders, Martinez, Moxie, Super Cacti, Yudintsev, Elove Goat, and Seductive Trash Can for supporting the channel.